looking at that because my son flies a Chinook. I should have known that, but I came up with the same stuff. But once you get the accumulator up to pressure, then it's my understanding that you hook the hydraulic pump up. Your APU, of course, would be running, but you engage the hydraulic pump to the APU, and the hydraulic pump is driven by the APU.
Yeah, they call it a starter pump.
Yeah, you're right, but I think the purpose of the accumulator is just to start a head pressure. Is it not?
According to this, it like I said, they use that accumulator. There's an accumulator system just for the APU to get it to start. So if you run down all that pressure, then you have to pump it up by hand to get the APU to start. And now the new one, it has a electric pump just to power to pump up that accumulator system. So it's like an add-on or an upgrade that they've done to the newer ones, so they don't have to use it by hand.
Yeah, that's exactly what I understood. But
yeah.
I understood that the hydraulic pump was driven by the APU once he was online.
Kind of like a starter generator, right? It switches over.
Yeah, that's
and then
exactly
it goes on from there. So I have one picture that defines this topic for you. And hopefully you get the so looking at your harnesses, this is what I got. So we'll recap some things so that everyone can see the ideas that we get things to 100%. So when you come into your Raychems, quite a few people had this right here. If you can see that solder, the band that's left over, they haven't heated enough. Yes, the front half is melted and sealed, and there's a possibility that you might actually overheat it and it may split or burn. But usually before it does that, you should get your solder sleeve to melt. Yes, you may see a bit of solder in there, but you shouldn't see that distinct band that's left. That one's pretty simple. You can just reheat it to get it to flow. It's not much of a major repair unless you've messed up the parts underneath. The lug crimps, I think, were probably the worst area. Many were put on backwards. Typically, either you didn't align the lug correctly in the tool, you put it in the wrong way. A lot of times the wire was coming out the back too much, and a few times it was coming way too far out the front. And the uninsulated one, there's two sizes, and 70% choose the 16 to 12 gauge lug, which is huge compared to the 22 gauge wire that you're putting on there. So that was an issue. So if I can show you here, right there was the crimp on the barrel. And if you look there, you kind of see the formation for the back. And if I were to look at it, you should see that telltale shape kind of that thin metal around your your lug. So when you look in the back, your insulation is in here, and this is around the lug. If you look on the other side, you'll notice there is no indent at the top. This part is going the wrong way. And when I look from the back, I see it kind of oval. It's not really closed in. So a lot of times if it's backwards, this is a case of it being backwards, the pressure on here is not enough to hold it. So you can pull it out. So you pull on it a little bit and it pulls out the wire. So that's not good. So again, what I'm expecting from you guys is to recognize a good crimp compared to a bad crimp. Sorry if you've forgot, right? Made a mistake, but if you can't recognize the bad ones, then you can redo it. If not, you're leaving bad crimps that could fall off. Looking at this, you can see the one on the left, it does have exposed wire, so you know that the wire's in there. You can see here the insulation is up underneath. This one, you're starting to get close to your ring terminal. And if you bend or move the wire, you can usually see the wires sticking out, which is not good. The other thing is you can feel the support. If your insulation is held up in the back here, your wiring is fairly stiff. When the wire's loose, it wiggles all around because it's flexing right here. So again, you want to support the insulation at the back of the crimp. So the lacing was interesting. Lacing should not move easily. It shouldn't come undone easily. Now, I'll admit there's a little bit of issue with the knot. The knot on D2L showed you the clove hitch, but you need 2 knots on top of the clove hitch. So a lot of people were just doing the clove hitch and leaving it, and it comes undone quickly. So you have to remember that the clove hitch is just the beginning, and then 2 regular knots on top to hold it in place. Don't be concerned with extra lacing either. Use lots. Don't be skimpy. I see a lot of people trying to lace with a little wee piece of lacing cord. You can't get enough leverage to get it tight. So use enough, and then just keep using your extra, but don't use it if it's real tiny. Just get more. That's another thing. Other than that, I think most of the things, there's some D-sub pins with a little bit too much wire exposed, but other than that, it was pretty good. But again, you want to make sure that it's correct before you move on. And that's why I wanted to get them redone properly before you start crimping again for your trays. So as far as the latching circuit, I think we're gonna, because we took up, I know first 2 groups took up some time to fix their harnesses. They're pretty much, I'm gonna hope that they're pretty close to being ready to go for the next class. So that means you want to get your paperwork done. So remember, there's a lot of research involved with that. And for that week, right, would be next week, except for Monday. You're going to have it installed, secured. That means soldering it. You want to test it, make sure it works, have it marked, and that means taking a picture of it. So if you bring it up or take a picture of it, and then everything has to be removed off the board and cleaned so it's good for the next person, which 3-hour lab, you should have lots of time to have that all done. Most of your information is on D2L, either it's a PDF. Some of the things you were Google, some of the things is 4313. If you don't get your tray done, we'll probably have to make sure that not too many people have the same tray. But again, the open labs are there for you to go in. If you get it done, get it working, again, take a picture of it when it's complete. And you're going to take all your wires and place them in a bag and hand in your wires that you've built for marking.
Hey, Brad.
Go ahead. Oops. Yep.
If we didn't finish it in class, do you want us to email the picture to you?
Yeah, that'll be if you did it in the open labs or after hours. So when you're done, completed it, make sure you take a picture of it complete, because again, you'll have to take it apart. Like I said, well, those ones will probably have to go case by case, just in case someone else has that tray. If you don't, then you can probably leave it. But if someone else needs a tray, then we'll have to take it apart. So some of the D-sub connectors, some people need a little bit of a refresher. I won't mention any names, but we're using a 25-pin D-sub connector. So on the left, and we have 2 rows of pins. That D-sub connector takes a 20 gauge contact, and that contact can handle 20 to 24 gauge wire. On the other hand, on the right side, we have the same size connector physically, but you'll notice I have 3 rows of pins. So this connector takes a 22 gauge contact, and a 22 gauge contact can handle 22 to 28 gauge wire. So you want to make sure that you don't get confused with the pin gauge and the wire range, or the wire gauge that it can handle. So it's 2 different things. So the gauge is the physical size of the pin. So these pins are really extremely tiny compared to the 20 gauge pins. So there's a difference between the 2 connectors, so that you can see that. So when you look at, this is just a clip of the chart in the shop. So you'll see that the gauge, right, the mating size has to be the same, a 22 to 22, a 20 pin to a 20 gauge pin. And then on the right-hand side is the wire range. So a 20 gauge pin will accept a 22 gauge wire, and a 22 gauge pin will accept a 22 gauge wire. So again, a little bit of a confusion there. And so again, we're using a 20 gauge pin. We're using 22 gauge wire, which fits in that wire range, which is fine. So moving on into troubleshooting. What does it mean to you?
Hey, Brad.
Oh, look at, I was waiting for this. See, this is going to be the most exciting part of the whole class. Woohoo!
Oh, I'm dying of
Oh, did you have a question, Ashley? I'm sure this is Ashley. I can't see, but
I'm not turning on my camera. I can't do that. It's too early in the morning. I haven't showered. It's not okay for people to see me. But so everyone needs to know and pay attention to what Brad just said, because I made that mistake and then proceeded to yell out in front of the entire class, Brad, you were wrong. I was right. And I was wrong. And he actually found those pins for me, and they are tiny, and now they are kept in my soldering kit to remind myself never announce that I was wrong, because I died of embarrassment for the rest of that class, and he's never going to let me live it down. But I apologize profusely.
I didn't say anything. I was just making it into a teaching moment for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you stepped forward and admitted your mistake.
You were rubbing it in the entire class. Don't even try that.
I don't think that the whole group can grasp the tone that you had in class. Yeah. It was a little.
I yelled. I yelled and was sassy, and I'm sorry.
See, that one fits. Yeah.
Ashley, you would never be sassy. What are you talking about?
Yo, I'm doubting this whole situation. I don't think this is a teaching moment. Who's getting paid? Who's getting paid under the table?
No one. I'm just covering my ass. Yeah, so everyone needs to know that I was wrong, and Brad can leave me alone for a little bit.
Just so you're aware that I did have this question come up in another class as well. So it, again, is a little bit of a point of confusion, but
at least it was a question.
They were very nice and understanding when I said, no, that would not be the correct thing to use. And they listened very nicely to what I had to say. Amazing.
Yeah. I was sassy and rude. I'm just going to die now. It's fine.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions and see what you think.
Always with the Ford jokes.
I owned a Ford, so I know that is correct, though.
See, we'll come back to this. This is actually today. It could be a good thing that that you've owned a Ford, right?
James, you're a traitor.
Sorry, guys. There's a reason why I don't have it anymore. Now I have the Civic, good old reliable.
You could have at least gone Toyota, man.
See, the term fix or repair daily comes in, right? So I'm pretty sure, for some reason, most people have done some sort of troubleshooting somewhere. And I know probably 90% of you don't want to do audio troubleshooting ever again in your life, right? That lovely squealing sound.
That'd be correct.
That would be correct, right? Probably the worst problem you can have is that audio noise feedback, right? It's very hard to find it, difficult to try and fix it, and you just kind of keep having to try different things to get it to hopefully get fixed. Again, how good are you? Well, some people are okay. Most people aren't very don't want to admit that they're good at it, but again, some people become very good at it. And most times you probably can keep learning, right? Always working ahead, getting better and better at it. So just so you see that 14 people have owned a Ford before, so they know what it's all about.
Why don't you ask,
Oh, geez. Oh,
Hey,
we got.
why don't you ask that question about how many people have owned a Dodge and had to troubleshoot it?
I don't think there's any.
I own two, and they were both worse than my Ford.
There you go.
Okay, James,
Thanks.
that's enough.
Thanks, James. You redeemed yourself in my eyes.
Good old
I was
third
about to
gen.
Not so much
Awful.
troubleshooting as worrying about rust spots with Dodge.
I'm gonna have to put up my participants so I can see who's talking now. Write this down.
I was about to say Lynn was being awfully quiet there.
He's reserved today. He's scared.
Go with GM and you'll never have an issue.
Come on, guys. You guys are all just jealous of us owners. We'll see you in the rearview mirror.
See, this is how you make sure that you get there.
He's got the Mercedes in there.
Yeah, see, I think the Mercedes guys. I was looking more at the Honda.
I think the car in the back costed more. Costed more than the Ford, anyways.
So if we start to think ahead, right? Carry a car in the back of the truck, right? So once we get there, we can unload it. What to expect, what you'll need as far as tools, parts, manpower, all those things come into effect, right? When you're trying to troubleshoot. So today is very, very
Brad.
When you say empty mind, are you referring to DeMello?
I can't say or confirm that. So up to now, I haven't heard of anyone that does troubleshooting class. So it's just kind of things that come along during a lesson, and you get a little bit here, a little bit there. I think Brett actually did a little bit. I know Joe does a little bit. And until now, we don't really do much of it formally anyway. And we all know that it only applies to electricity. I guess not. But again, why do we do it now? Probably should be done as early as we can, right? To give you the skills to try and build on all the way through. But for now, we have it near the end. You've done a little bit. You're starting to do more and more. Next week, you'll probably be doing more with the tray. Again, it can apply to just about anything. So let's see. What do you think troubleshooting is? So this was multiple choice. So I put down a tool, a skill, an art, or science. So believe it or not, it's a bit of everything, right? It's a bit of a tool, it's a bit of a skill. There's an art to it, and there's science to it. So again, it is a tool, it is a skill, art, and science. So we're going to get all of those included, and hopefully become well rounded in troubleshooting. So what's the benefits? So again, I'm pretty sure aircraft are not getting simpler. Yeah, they're getting more and more complex. So the modern aircraft, right, problems that you're going to start to encounter are going to get more and more difficult. So again, what training you can get in troubleshooting is only going to make you a better mechanic, right? Gives you that experience, gives you that training to be able to troubleshoot. And who's looking for that? Well, employers, right? They want someone that can troubleshoot and find the problems, because that means they don't have to spend as much money. So again, usually the systems, right? You've got usually a good rounded knowledge of all systems, electronic. So you have a little bit of information, but you're going to have to be able to use your skills to try and troubleshoot problems as they come up. So again, all those skills and all those experience can come and benefit you. So looking at it as an art or a science. So your basic concepts like reasoning, basic concepts are tools that form the scientific part, right? So do you know how the system works? Can you fix it today? Is it going to take 2 days, 3 days? Again, beyond the science becomes the skills that are applied. So looking at people with the exact same skills can apply their knowledge in a different way to get to the same conclusion, right? Now we have the Ford versus the Dodge owner.
Dodge owners have always been a little more slow, eh?
So
There's two.
there's Lynn. So the Ford owner, he'll keep trying, right? He'll keep trying to fix it, where the Dodge owner will walk over and say, no, it's broken. Don't worry about it. You're not going to fix that today, right?
Cut a bump, cut a bang.
So again, and not everyone has the same skills. A lot of things affect it. Again, hobbies, work. Some people have worked in automotive. Some people own Volkswagens, right? Do more wiring than others. Some own Ford, some own Dodge, right? So again, all your skills will come to affect how your skills are increased. So again, the science is the tools, and the arts is how you're going to apply them. So one of the things that we talk about in troubleshooting is the restraints and restrictions. So can anyone think of some restraints or restrictions you might come across? Usually the first one is right, the green stuff, the money, right? If you have tons of money to throw at a problem, right, you can buy a new one. But if you don't have enough money to keep throwing at it, the problem, then you're gonna have to find a different approach. Restrictions. Do you have the ability to have one guy on the job, or do you have a whole crew? That's going to give you time, right? How much time do you have to get this fixed? A lot of times the aircraft has to go. So can it be fixed in the amount of time that you have? So a lot of those things are going to come into play. So where are we going to start troubleshooting? Do we just go right ahead and fix it? Do we confirm it first? Come up with a plan? So the most chosen was confirm the problem, but again, all of these things are good, right? But the first thing we want to do is formulate a plan. Why? Because we have to consider all those restraints or restrictions even before we can confirm the problem. Because if you don't have enough time to confirm the problem, then you're going to have to figure out something else to do, right? Is it going to be a deferred item? How are you going to deal with it? So first thing we're going to do is come up with a plan. So again, a plan of attack. So that we're going to do is 4 steps is right, define the situation, some of the past that influence it. So again, making sure that we're going down the right area. Then we're going to come up and test it, right? Confirm the problem. Yes, there's this problem. We found it. And then we're going to go for that corrective action and try and fix it. So how are we going to define the situation? So first of all, was it reported correctly and defined? So again, a lot of times you can get a definition of what's the problem, and you can get their interpretation of what they think is wrong. And you can spend a lot of time, money, and effort trying to fix something that may not even be the problem. So make sure that they report the problem correctly so that you can go down and confirm it, right? Do you have the equipment? Do you have the manpower to even test the snag first? So again, you want to ensure that that problem exists. So verify it. And there comes those guys, right? Those pilots. So Again, the pilots may have just had finger troubles, right? They turned something off. They don't understand how it works. So it could be a very simple problem, and the pilot may have his own opinion of what he thinks is the problem. Again, making sure you take the information and you decide what you want to do and what you want to check. So again, look at what is actually malfunctioning and what could be an indication of malfunction. So is something coming up because there's a failure? Identify the correct and most serious problems, right? Is there an engine knock, or is the oil leaking out of the engine? So obviously if there's an engine knock, that's more serious than the oil leaking out of the engine. We need to fix that one first. Again, your restraints and constrictions, right? If it's the whole engine that has to come off and be overhauled, time and money. Do they want to spend that much money and time into the engine? See, I'm nice. So if you find that an oil filter is leaking while troubleshooting a fuel pressure problem, it would be more efficient to record the problems or the snags, continue on troubleshooting with your fuel snag. You don't want to be distracted by other snags or other things that are wrong, right? Record it, keep going on the initial problem that you were on. Distractions. Look at the squirrel. So some of the paths that can influence you. So again, once we've confirmed the problem and we defined it accurately, and next step is to think of the problem in terms of its function. So how does it work? Is there a function that's not being completed or accomplished by the failure? Again, think of it in the broad sense, making sure that you're taking everything into account. Right? Try not to jump to the first thought, right? Oh, it's Ford. It's got to be the transmission. Or the easiest one, right? Make sure you take your time, be thorough, go through everything so that you know that you've gone through all the process. So for instance, if a flat position indicator displays transit indication, what's the problem? So what is it? It's saying it could be the indicator. Could be a flap problem. No one thought of that one. It could be electrical, hydraulic, pilot, or carburetor. So if the problem is that the flaps won't retract, remember that the indicator is merely a clue to start your troubleshooting procedure. Yes, it still could be the indicator, but if your flaps are extending, then they won't come back up. So remember that the transit indication is just to show that there is a problem. So we don't want to be a Canadian Tire mechanic. And we'll come back to that after. So we'll take a break and we'll come back in 10 minutes. So it's 20 after, so around 9:30. All right. You can go have another Red Bull, a couple more coffees.